From the start of One Piece, Zoro made a promise that he'd never lose again until he became the world's strongest swordsman, and to this day he's more or less kept that promise, aside from the whole Kuma incident, and I'd say it's fair enough to count that out, seeing as he made the promise to Luffy, as Luffy required nothing less than the best swordsman if he was going to be Pirate King. But if Luffy himself is being defeated, how can we expect his underling to carry out the rest of the promise for the team? I mean, he tried his damn best, but I think it is best that we look at this fight as a squad annihilation as opposed to Zoro's loss. So that being said, Zoro isn't the world's strongest swordsman yet, and he's still got a promise to uphold, and judging by his track record, bets are all on Zoro, right? That's until you really sit back and think about where he's going. He may as well be knocking on the gates of hell. Okay, so what am I getting at? Well, look at the situation Luffy's in. Invading the territory of Yonko, going head to head with one of her commanders, and needing to use Gear 4th to even breathe, let alone survive. And that's just an underling. Now take a look at Zoro's situation. He's about to do the exact same thing, except his opponent is an irrational, hot-headed drunk who attempts suicide for fun and jumped off of a sky island, landed face first, and still had enough strength to obliterate one of Zoro's rivals, as well as scare the other one shitless to the point where he joined the crew. So just think about it. We've all assumed that we get there and everything's going to be civilized. Maybe Zoro will fight one-on-one with a Calamity similar to what Luffy is doing. But what we're all forgetting is that this is not Big Mom. Big Mom sat back. She analysed her enemies, gathered information, and does what's necessary. Whereas Kaido just wants a war. Every time we see him, he's been out causing trouble himself. There's no guarantee that he won't just decide to take matters into his own hand. But I might be being a bit harsh, so I'll give them the benefit of the doubt, and assume that Kaido sends one of his Calamities first. A character who would be at Doflamingo's power level or above. More likely above, but I know how difficult power scaling can get in One Piece, so I'll leave you lots to decide that. But I will say it took two people at their best to take out Doflamingo. And luckily for Zoro, he has two more people with him, Kinemon and Trafalgar Law. So if you put Trafalgar Law, Zoro and Kinemon in a fight against the Calamity, it's safe to say they have a good chance of winning, provided the Calamity doesn't bring a full crew of their own with them. But then what happens? We beat that Calamity. Do we then deal with one stronger than the last? Does Kaido come himself? Or does he send the Shogun in his place? Either way, it's going to be a tough fight. For one of these cases, the tough fight is an understatement. I mean, I could possibly imagine those three defeating a second Calamity, and seeing as all three of them are swordsmen, I could imagine them taking on the Shogun too, as a lot of people do expect Zoro to go up against the Shogun in a one-on-one fight anyway. But seeing as this is the island full of samurai, I wouldn't say it would be an easy fight in the slightest. And another thing is, the Shogun is their target. Him and Kaido are at the head of the table, which means he's not likely to be going out hunting the enemy. He's going to force the enemy to come to him. So long story short, without a plan, without a strategy, they'll go in there head first, win a couple battles but lose the war. So what are their options? And remember, this all needs to be done without losing a single fight if Zoro's going to keep his promise. So to figure out their options, we have to look at their goal. To kill the Shogun and end his alliance with Kaido, along with freeing the people of Wano. And seeing as this alliance is an oppression, the people of Wano probably aren't supporters of this alliance, and Zoro has a valuable ally, Kinemon, a man who probably knows Wano Kingdom better than anyone, and has friends and allies in the country, meaning he can use his knowledge of the country and his connections with citizens to lay low and get to the Shogun undetected. This may be the option that they go with, considering Kinemon said, "We can't all go into Wano, otherwise we'd be spotted immediately," meaning that they might already be considering the stealth route. But their other option, instead of making their way to the Shogun, they just lay low and wait for backup. And we all know who Nekomamushi's looking for, Marco and the remnants of the Whitebeard Pirates. So if we have them, as well as the rest of the Minks, hell, depending on how things go down with Luffy, he may even be free to lend a hand as well. And that's when they all go out, guns blazing, no holding back. Since Kaido's been hunting down Kinemon and Momonosuke, he wouldn't be expecting them to bring the fight to his doorstep. And with such a large force, it would be extremely hard for him to combat, especially if he's still got a lot of his forces spread out looking for them. I mean, it would be pretty close to a Yonko v Yonko war, seeing as both sides would have a considerable amount of people who are part of or were part of a Yonko crew. Now that I think about it, some of these fighters have even sailed alongside Roger himself. Just imagining the scene of Marco, the Minx and the Straw Hats standing head to head with Kaido and his calamities and his whole Zoan army just gives me chills. And then imagining the enraged Kaido turning into his Zoan form and posing a whole new kind of threat. But the other question still remains, what do you guys think would happen? Do you think my previous examples were more accurate and that they just get defeated the second they land on Wano? Or do you think that they'd end up waiting for their backup and then actually start a full-scale war? Either way, how do you think Zoro will manage to keep his promise to Luffy? Like the video if you did and subscribe if you haven't already. Let's keep this Narcomal growing. Have a great day people. It's been One Vision and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.